Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. Unshaved, unbathed, unedited, but quite a bit scripted today. We've got some articles that are just too good not to read you some of. So have a slurp, pull up a chair, get some cranberry trail mix with organic walnuts, and join the fray. Bring your pitchforks. What are we supposed to do if we want to revolt against plutocracy and we have no legitimate people to vote for in elections? Something we need to keep thinking about. In yesterday's episode of the Bernie or Bust Show, it was about bringing shady union leaders to heel, but it was also about Elizabeth Warren and why would any legitimate union back Elizabeth Warren any more than why would they back Hillary Clinton? And so in this yesterday's show, episode 79, that I can link to under this one, you'll see not only the union stuff, but you'll see about Elizabeth Warren. The one I'm going to start with is the Legitimization Machine, and then I'm going to go to is Warren talented enough to betray the people as masterfully as Obama? Because we have to acknowledge what happened with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama if we're going to understand what would happen with Elizabeth Warren. So this list, check out Warren explaining why she opposes public control over our energy resources. Beware of any Democrat still supporting a corporate candidate. Megan Day, Jacobin magazine, don't trust Elizabeth Warren's big donor ban. And then they interview Megan on the Hill. Dear progressives for Warren, your class is showing. This illustrates that the poor people, the young people, the poorly educated people who are desperate for real change are not supporting Warren and won't support Warren in a general election against Donald Trump. They'll either stay home, that's most of them, they'll vote for a third party, or they will vote directly for Trump. And we talked about the kinds of privileged white liberals that could vote for someone like Biden or Warren. They don't like that. They're in conversations in social media, that argument that the people who could vote for Biden or Warren, especially Warren, they are really fighting that. Here and in the United Kingdom, they're fighting the idea that privilege is why you would vote for a neoliberal. And that argument, we may not win that. The resistance is extreme there. It's still true. And you can put that in people's faces and that won't hurt anything, but you may be wasting your time telling privileged suburbanites that they need to stop thinking about neoliberal candidates. But we'll keep on plugging. Then I want to show you a poll. All this is to show you powerfully how we can use leverage to get Bernie in. If it doesn't work, then we're going to have to resort to pitchforks and guillotines, because voting, if we can't use leverage to get the rigged voting procedure to work, then there's not much else to do other than massive job strikes and protests with pickets. Put on your green vest. That's where we'll be going next. Here's a poll that's permanent instead of a week long, and it only has 58 votes because I haven't been pushing this one yet. But if you take this one right now, you'll see that it's about 12% who would vote blue and about 88% who would do something else. And if you go to the comments underneath, you'll see that most of these are third party. Staying home isn't a very good way to start a revolution. So it's better if you can find a candidate who's actually going to, who would stand for what you stand for in terms of, especially in terms of economic justice, but also environmental justice and social justice. But all of those seem to be tied directly to overwhelming the power of the big banks. If this poll gets out, if you share this poll and it gets viral, the Third Way people, the Center for American Progress people, the Neera Tandons, and the David Brocks, and the Michael Kives. I called him David Kives the other day. Michael Kives, the talent agency exec, former talent agency exec for CAA. And these people that are part of the Clinton machine, they'll get nervous. The big media, the corporate media will get nervous. If they see that people are just not going to be shepherded into the Democratic Party, this is a good point that just occurred to me. The reason we had the New Deal, the reason FDR introduced the New Deal was that they were afraid of pitchforks. That was the whole reason that the concessions were made. What will really change things is when the people who are all in agreement that enough is enough and the big money has to stop ruling us and squeezing us, that's when things will change, and not until then. You're not going to get that message delivered up the chain unless you get somebody who's authentic. You're not going to get that to happen with Elizabeth Warren. So this leverage, this anger, this frustration, this rage against the machine, against what's going on and has been going on for the last 70 years, all of the information from Thomas Piketty about what kinds of candidates appeal to poor and poorly educated voters, that's where the pitchforks are going to be waved. And if we're not paying attention, and most importantly, getting around the blockade, because the corporate media will just snicker. They'll associate us with anti-vaxxers or flat earthers, or they will discount us. They will discredit us, and our word will only get out if we go around them, around their blockade. So we don't we don't need to go full mental, but we need to make sure that we have reasonable conversations with reasonable people on social media and get as many people aware of the fact around this blockade as possible. And okay, let me jump to these articles now. Legitimization Machine, Elizabeth Warren. Since the crash of 2008, the neoliberal structures that have dominated our political lives and discourse for the last 40 years have been fending off a legitimization crisis. That's a good word for what I was just talking about. Legitimization is where people don't accuse you of wearing a tinfoil hat. Obama spent 8 years using his award-winning brand of progressive neoliberalism to hope and change it away for one portion of the populace. That's what Sarah Palin was saying. Where's all the hopey, changey stuff? Then when that left 43% of Americans unable to afford the basics and 78% living paycheck to paycheck, 78%, Trump promised to make America great again for the other half, with a nativist, racist take on the same essential neoliberal approach. I've noticed that the blue team, the neoliberal part, the neoliberal wing, and the red team both hate when you call Trump a neoliberal. But he is. If neoliberalism has been brilliant at anything, it's been its ability to morph, rebrand, and integrate different aesthetics into the process of justifying its perpetuation. That's why we've been under neoliberal rule for 70 years and haven't noticed, because we keep changing blue team, red team, blue team, red team, but it's still all neoliberal team. It's all crony capitalism. It's all the oligarchs pulling the strings of the puppets. Only now, with accelerating economic precarity and UN scientists giving us 12 years to get our climate act together, neoliberal institutions are marshaling every tool at their disposal to stave off a growing existential threat to its dominance. So you've got one existential threat, which is the climate crisis and the economic crisis, if these pitchforks really start to come out, and then their existential threat, their very existence, because you can't have both. You're either going to have the planet exist, or you're going to have these oligarchs continue to dominate. And what ominous specter has the Democratic blue team, has these Dem-leaning billionaires, corporations, media, politicians, and think tanks caballing behind closed doors? I'm not the only one calling this Hollywood Clinton machine, oligarchy funded team a cabal. This is exactly what it is. That's right, the ghoul is a septuagenarian social democratic senator from Vermont running a campaign fueled by small individual donations that average a whopping $16 per, promising to fight for monstrous public goods like universal health care. But make no mistake, Bernie Sanders is a threat. And he's a threat precisely because his movement stands in clear antagonistic opposition to the material depravity of current structures. Sanders has been making the same analysis and argument for his entire political career. He understands that the ability to challenge entrenched power arises out of class solidarity and movement muscle catalyzed by the commonality of material needs. Here's a good Leonard Cohen quote. It's coming from the sorrow in the street, the holy places where the races meet, from the homicidal bitchin' that goes down in every kitchen to determine who will serve and who will eat. This article just goes on and gets better and better, but I want to leave you with the powerful point that we will not get justice with Elizabeth Warren, and that we need to send that message clearly up the chain to the masters. It's not going to happen through corporate media, so we have to do it through these Facebook polls. We have to share these on Reddit. We have to share these on Twitter. We have to share these on Instagram. We have to share these everywhere we can think of to get the word out past the blockade so that our masters know that we're not going to have it anymore, that we're not going to swallow Joe Biden, obviously, with whatever his wife says, and we're absolutely not going to tolerate a finger-wagging capitalist like Elizabeth Warren. We need to get over this shit now. We need to make sure everybody knows it's not going to work. It's not going to happen again. Hindsight is 2020, and it's got to be a true, authentic progressive who will take on the big banks, who will take on the industrial military complex, the police industrial complex, that will take on big pharma, will take on the health insurance industry, that will take on Monsanto, that will take on Halliburton and Raytheon and Boeing and all the oligarch structure. And it isn't that many people. When you start waving pitchforks and you've got 97% of the population waving them at the 3% or less, then it all becomes clear. We don't have to put up with this shit anymore. It's time to stand up. It's time to get this done. And this is our chance. While Bernie is still young and spry, we need to get this going. So happy Friday and keep on burning.